Hey everybody, it's James. This is the ComedyPreneur Show, and today we're gonna have two special guests for you. We have Jared McFadden and Jess Mosby, who are agents for comedians. And that's a great thing because a lot of us have questions about how do you get an agent? What does an agent do? Those kind of questions like that are big things that we're always trying to figure out, big things that we always want to know. And it's one of those things where it's really, really difficult or hard to figure out how do you get an agent? What is it all about? And do you need one? Right? A lot of comedians are wondering, do I need an agent? Should I be trying to find an agent? It's the same question that a lot of writers have. So doing writing and doing comedy, both of those things, they come up all the time. So let's do the intro and get to the show. Please welcome Jess Mosby and Jared McFadden. Thank you guys so much for being on the show. Wow.
Hey guys, thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks. We're excited to chat.
All right, awesome. So I kind of have a lot of questions, and these are a lot of questions that a lot of comedians have. So I'm going to ask you guys these questions, and just kind of give me the information because this is one of those things where there's not really a lot of information for comedians out there. Actually, can you guys tell us more about yourselves and what you guys actually do as agents? Maybe that'll answer some questions right away too.
Yeah, so I mean, I got my start. I started working in the agency world primarily in music. Used to book Sugar Ray and Bryan Adams and Richard Marx, and then I acquired a large hip hop roster, so not what you would think of comedy wise. And so I had worked at a couple different agencies that just weren't the right environment for me. I've always seen myself as a leader, and then Al McCree is kind of like this undiscovered gem in the comedy world. And so, I connected with him, got a job, and we wanted to, along with our music roster, launch a comedy roster. And so he had huge success, being a manager for Jeannie Robertson. And we were able through that to find a lot of really special comedians, especially clean comedians, which people often forget that there's an audience for clean comedy as well. And then throughout like the growing pains of, building a comedy roster, we were able to bring Jared in, who seriously has like the best ear for comedy and like the best advice for that. So that's a little bit about me. I'll let Jared tell a little bit about him, and then we're happy to answer any questions that you have.
Awesome. Jared?
Yes, mine actually I come from more of a beauty background. For the past few years, I was a makeup artist. And while it was a really great business, I loved it. I wasn't getting a lot of work in it, so I had a lot of free time. And so one day, she was literally a one-woman show, with the company. And, she reached out and, she needed a little bit of help. And I was, doing some research projects for her, just like little things here and there. And one day I told her, I said, Jess, I love this. Like, this is really fun. I love what you do. I want to know more about it. And so, a few months passed by. She said, let's get you a little bit, bigger projects and, get the company a little bit better. And so in January, they hired me on, and here we are now.
Congrats. That's awesome. Those are always good
Thank
things
you.
where you take something that you're passionate about and you turn that into a career, to a profession. So here's the questions we're going to start with. What does when does a comedian start to look for an agent? When should they start looking? I mean, obviously probably not at the open mic level, but when should they start looking?
I think that's a really good question. I think for me, I always like to take a look at comedians I always pay attention to social media numbers. So I would say like once you kind of reach a plateau, I'd say like around 5,000 mark is usually like, okay, we can probably build on this, whether it's 5,000 likes on Facebook or Instagram followers. That's just a good number because you know that they're probably not just like location specific. You're probably reaching a wider fan base because it's really important that you have the fan base first. I would say if you have like some hard touring history, like if you are doing a lot of open mics, if you're getting gigs at comedy clubs like Zanies and stuff who don't just take anyone, Zanies, like Improvs, Laugh Factories, Comedy Off Broadway in Lexington. If you've had some history playing there, like I'm pretty interested in seeing, okay, hey, there might be something here that we can transition to, like a live theater show. We might be able to package you with some people. So I really like to take a look at social media and tour history before, wanting to take that initial conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Now, does that, when you say social media, what if a comedian doesn't do social media? Like, I'm super not social media guy. Like, I got rid of Twitter and Instagram and all that stuff. I kind of I have my own website. I do my own stuff. I have, thousands of downloads of my podcast or whatever, and I have a pretty good following. Is that going to matter instead of a guy who doesn't want to have
Sure. And I kind of count podcasting and website. I kind of include that in social media as well, because we've seen a lot of really great comedians start off with a podcast and now all of a sudden they're doing live podcast shows, which I think that's a really great live show to bring to people. It's something unique and something different. So I do pay attention to a lot of comedy podcasts and stuff like that too. I kind of lump that in with social media. I like to see how many listeners are out there, and then you just kind of do your background. We do a lot of investigative work on anyone that we're considering, just to make sure that they're a good fit, because the worst thing that can happen is you get someone who you think is really great and the fan base just isn't there. Like, if we can't sell tickets, if we can't, connect to an audience somehow, it's going to be a lose-lose situation for us both.
Gotcha.
Now,
Now,
also to piggyback off of Jess a little bit too,
sure.
when she said, to have your materials together, your hard tour history, promotional materials also, it's because, when you're starting off and you're just getting an agent, usually our buyers aren't booking the actual comedian. They are booking what we're sending them. They're booking the video clips. They're booking the tour history. They're booking, their followers basically.
Gotcha. Okay, perfect. And do you guys do management as well, or are you just agents? And how does that work? What's the difference between the two?
So our company is really cool. I like to describe our company as a one-stop shop for all of your artist needs. So we have a major site in digital distribution, which focuses on Spotify, YouTube, just digital content in general. We have a promotion side where that's where we do a lot of co-production shows, and we can go into a little bit more about what a co-pro show is. And then we have management and we have booking, which obviously I run the booking department. But our management is kind of where the bread and butter got started. Al really started managing Jeannie Robertson's career, and not all of our comedians that we manage, but we do have 3 additional management clients that we also are the booking agent for. And so there is a difference between the management and the booking side. Management is really focusing on creating that social media following, creating opportunities for you to get your press, get your media, get people talking about you. We like to describe it as gaining that celebrity for you and making sure you know where you're supposed to be. Management handles a lot of private engagements, where we handle a lot of public shows. And I think that's the big difference, but they definitely go hand in hand.
Now, do you guys just do basically, so what if a comedian wants to also be like a comedy writer or a TV person or whatever? Do you guys work in the lit world as well? Or is it just strictly those kind of stand-up engagements or live show engagements?
I'd say a little bit of both. Obviously with Jeannie Robertson, that's much more of a management situation where we do like to chase after the Netflix specials. We do like to chase after like any live TV opportunity. If anyone's looking for, a comedy writer, but right now most of our roster pretty much wants to do like the live stand-up show. And then after they've kind of acquired their celebrity from that, I think a few of them want to transition into the writing world, which, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. But we're always chasing, like, I've had a couple of meetings with some people from Netflix about a couple of really cool specials that we could do. So yeah, we chase after that stuff too. Really, any opportunity that's going to get people excited, going to get people to pay attention, we're on it in all forms.
Awesome. So what's the best way to get you guys attention besides social media? Is like, do people send you a tape or a link or whatever, or do they, get invited out to shows? Like, how do you find that new talent that you're looking for?
Usually, so something that we've had over the last couple of years, Jeannie Robertson had this humor competition where people entered the humor competition, and through that we were able to find, some really great people through that. We found Mike Paramore. We found a couple of really good people from that. So there was that. I love when people send me invites to shows, especially because, I don't like paying for tickets these days. So I love going to free shows. So if anyone invites me to their show, I really do like to see someone live. I think that live is so much different than like a reel that you get sent to you. So I think for me, the best way to capture my attention is say, hey, Jess, checked out your roster. Like, would love to have a conversation with you. I'm playing at this show this night. Would love for you to come out. And then, because I want to see how I pay more attention to your delivery. If you're awkward on stage, pay attention to who is in the crowd and what they're responding to. And if there's like a good energy between you and the crowd, chances are I'm going to say, hey, let's have coffee or dinner.
Got you. Perfect.
Absolutely.
And does having that packet or video help as well? So if I invite you to a show, but I also have a packet or I have a lot of videos or a lot of engagement, on my videos, is that a good thing as well?
I think so. I think that having some sort of video is really great because you get to hear your material a little bit. So it kind of prefaces you for the show that you're going to go to. I also, like, for example, Jeannie Robertson, how she gained her success, like she went viral. And so I think that if you have something that goes viral, something that's like, hey, this is attention, like this is worth you coming to my show. So yeah, I do think that part's important too. I just think that before I can consider booking you, like no matter how strong your video is, I'm going to want to see you live first. I think Jared would agree with that too.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd rather see you live, and I'm a very social person anyway, so I love going to shows. I love getting invited. I'm also a very hard laugh too. So if you can make me laugh, you definitely have my attention, and I love to see audience engagement.
Awesome.
How well you can capture that audience for me.
So if someone reaches out to you guys and they don't hear back, what's the time frame of not hearing back, and when should they follow up with you? Like if you guys don't email back in 6 weeks, should they follow up, or what's the time frame look like for that stuff?
For me, I think it's a little bit different. I always try to like be mindful of how it feels whenever, like whenever I was applying for a job or something like that, like what I would want to hear back. So for me, I think it's different. I think it's important to give like realistic time frames of being like, just acknowledging that you got their email, which I always tend to do, and just be like, hey, got your email, probably super busy for the next like couple weeks or whatever. But if you want to circle back with me, maybe the first of this month, I typically like to do it. If you don't hear back from me like in a week or whatever, just please don't constantly email me. That's a situation, if it's urgent and you're like, this is my like Make-A-Wish Foundation moment, like put urgent in the subject line, but like don't like, I think that whenever there's a fine line for artists between being passionate and needy, and if you start to cross the needy line, I'm gonna put you in my unless he's got something really good going on, let's just put this on the back burner. But I do always try to acknowledge everyone and be super realistic. Perfect.
And what about you, Jared? Is there a time frame that you like to talk to people?
Yeah, usually turnaround time. Like I haven't gotten back to you. Give me like a week, just write me back, kind of remind me,
Yeah, I mean, we get busy, so I totally understand. But yeah, there's definitely that fine line of like, help me, and like, hey guys, what's going on? There's a big difference there.
Yeah, and I think that approach is, I think that if you can approach it of understanding that we're in the business of, part of our salaries include commission, so we're out there hustling not just for company but for like our livelihood as well. And so if we're deep in the thick of stuff, please just be mindful that like we might not have the capacity to get to you right away, but like we'll at least acknowledge you.
Gotcha.
Just don't be needy. That's like the biggest thing. I feel like I'm a guy like putting myself on an online dating app, like don't be needy. If I had a Tinder profile for comedy booking, it would say don't be needy.
So when it comes to that, are there certain things that will make you automatically turn down a comedian? Like that will just right away say, no, not for us. I mean, besides the clean thing, obviously, which sounds like that's more of your business, but is there anything specific like that a comedian will do that will just like, no, we're not even going to look that way?
Probably for me, it'd be ego, especially if you don't have that celebrity just yet. And you're like Jesse, you're being very needy, or constantly emailing, you're constantly calling, and it's kind of like, hey, calm down, like you don't have it just yet, okay? Yeah, it's just more so for me, it's just gonna be like ego, and and also when it comes to actually being live, like I said, you're interacting with your audience, how you respond back to them, as long as you're not like rude or anything like that, like that's basically it for me.
I think for me, like obviously I think that ego is a big situation because you kind of want to strip your ego away, because I think that if you're really trying to do comedy, you're not really doing it for yourself, you're really trying to make people laugh. And I think that that's the beauty of comedy, is especially times that we're in now is people need to laugh. And so I think that if you're too busy thinking about yourself, like you're not really in it for the right reasons. So ego is a big thing for me. Honestly, I also got to say, if you are regurgitating material, I mean, I've heard so many people do the skit with like where people are pronouncing the names wrong, like Aaron and all that stuff. I'm just like, that's been done so many times before. Please don't do that. Like, I really like original material. I like relatable stories. I think that people want something to relate to. I don't want you to get up there and just tell knock knock jokes. Like, I want you to be able to take like your life experiences, be able to put a humorous twist on it and share that with people.
Perfectly. That's awesome. I mean, that's exactly right. There's, you can't be ripping off material. That's just a no anyways in the comedy world. We've seen a lot of people crash and burn because of that. What about advice for comedians coming up? So I'm guessing your roster has probably been doing stand-up more than a year, more than probably 2 years. You're probably looking at the average being like, what, 5 to 10 years, somewhere in that range. Is that right?
Yeah, and sometimes we have like some 15 to 20-year vets in there too. I would say know what your routine is and constantly be working for new material. We see it all the time where people have like a solid set, and I think that's going to get your foot in the door. But what's going to keep you in the door is if you can constantly be attentive to what's going on in the world and like amenable to like changing like your routine and being okay to do something different. So I think that it's kind of like a one-hit wonder, like in music. Like, you don't just want someone who's just going to sing Mambo No. 5 and want to live off royalties. Like, we're going to want like a little bit more than that. So
wait, so you're saying that comedians should be writing new material and practicing new material and doing new stuff, not just their same 5, 10, 15 minutes forever?
I know, it's shocking. It is shocking, but yes, absolutely. Kind of a very obvious thing, the here's your sign situation from Blue Collar. That's pretty much it right there. So
Yeah. And I think that's the big thing is there's a lot of comedians who they think that they have their 5 or 10 minutes locked in. That's going to get them work forever. And then when they go on the road, then I'll work on a routine when I know I'm going to go on the road. But really, we should be building up material and stuff like that. So how often are you looking for new material for them to be generating new material? Because, building 5 minutes is not easy. It is a long course for that. And same thing for 10 and more like that.
Yeah, so what I like to do, like whenever we're booking tours, I like to obviously cycle through like one routine. Like, we've got, 10 or 15 dates on the books. Go ahead, cycle through there, take like a month or two off, just see what went well with that. Because there are some jokes that are always going to land, wherever you do, no matter how many times you do them. But I think that once you cycle through like one tour or one special, Netflix special, whatever it is, I think that then you got to be like, okay, let me take a couple months off in the summer where people are outside doing things, and like, let me get stuff ready for a fall tour. Spring and fall are the biggest times to tour. So if you can have one set in the spring, take the summer, like write, do podcasts, like get yourself out there, experience life a little bit, come back really strong in the fall with a new routine. Obviously you're going to have some of those other previous jokes as well. But I always think it's really important that you take that time off a little bit to rest, recover, and, get creative again.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're definitely going to do a special or album or anything like that, that material you're not going to want to repeat anyways. I mean, maybe if you do encore at the end of your show or whatever. Now,
yeah, and I've been to shows before where I have been like, wow, I've heard this 5 times from you. I've got up and left before because I'm just like, I can't sit through it again. I know the punchline. I can't. And that's like the fan in me, not even so much the agent, but it's just the fan in me, because I'm like, if I've heard this 5 times, I can't imagine how many times these people have heard it before.
Yeah, well, my experience is I do one pilgrimage every year to Las Vegas to see Jerry Seinfeld do stand-up. That's like my one big thing that I love to do. I love it more than anything. And he does the same material every single year. And I'm totally okay with it.
Jerry Seinfeld. That's if you're Jerry Seinfeld, you can say the same thing over to me as many times as you want to. Yeah. But until you're Jerry Seinfeld or Ellen DeGeneres or someone like that, be creative.
Yeah. Now, what's the minimum amount of material or time that somebody needs to have for you guys to have interest in them? Because, there's a lot of comedians, especially in LA or in New York, LA more than New York, but it's building 5 minutes is hard because you only maybe get 2 minutes or 7 minutes. If you're lucky, or 5 minutes on a show, you're not getting more than that. So building outside of that 5 minutes, it takes a long time to progress that way, unless you're running your own shows, hosting your own show, stuff like that. So what's the minimum amount of time that you're looking for?
I mean, I think that if you can come up with a good quality 15 to 20 minute set where like there's no awkward silence, obviously there's going to be some room for like some crowd engagement, some improv, all that stuff. But I think that if you can get up there for a good 15, 20 minutes, it's going to leave room for us to like build around your show, whether that's like supplying you with a local opener, you know, doing like fan engagement afterwards to fill up that extra slot, or we can package you. Something that we've found really successful so far has been packaging comedians together. And we just ask for like we usually do 3 comedians and we just ask for like a 25-minute set. And then at the end, they kind of all come together in improv. So if you can give me a good 15 to 20 minutes with some room for some improv and some crowd engagement, I'm usually pretty impressed.
Jared, same thing for you?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. 15, 20 minutes. If you can hold that over and make me laugh, you got it.
You would be surprised at how often in LA that doesn't happen. That if you get that the guy who gets 10 minutes sometimes can only really fill 7 of those minutes, and the rest of it is very awkward crowd engagement. Right. Okay, well that's weird, but that's good to know. I mean, a lot of comedians, I always say your first 5 minutes is the hardest, right? Once you can build that first 5-minute set, after that it's just repeating that process over and over again and working that 5 so you can have a tight 5, tight 10, tight 15. You just build 5 minutes at a time, especially in LA where that's really what you can build in a month is 3 to 5 minutes every month, and that's because you should be writing constantly, should be getting up constantly, working on new material. So I know how difficult that is. Is there any big things that you're always looking for, or that comedians should be thinking about when they're going through this process? Because our goal, right, we all want to be famous, right? That's the whole thing. Every comedian you probably run into is like, I'm going to be the next whatever, and they give you somebody's name. Is there a specific spark or specific charm or specific thing that you're looking for that this person has what I'm looking for? Like, is there that thing, and can you identify that?
I think for me, the thing is like having an identity, like coming in, and I actually don't like it when people say, I'm going to be the next whoever. I want you to be the first you. And I think that if people come in with like a very strong sense of self-awareness and are willing to, I like people to be self-aware, and I like them to be willing to do the work, because I can sit here and pitch you till I'm blue in the face, but unless you have something for me to pitch, it's no good. And I want people to find their own sense, because I think that so many of the greats, like your Jerry Seinfelds, your Ellens, your legendary comedians, Gilda Radner, stuff like that, they were them and they're legendary because they knew who they were.
Yeah.
And so if you come in with a bunch of like, if you don't know who you are or what you're willing to do, we don't need to have a conversation. Like, we can keep tabs until you kind of develop that a little bit more. Like, what makes you special? There's something that makes everyone special, and I would say everyone on our roster, there's something that makes them really special. Like, we were talking about Henry Cho before this started. Like, he took, being an Asian American growing up in the South, like he took that and really ran with his life experiences. I mean, Jeannie Robertson she is in her late 70s touring the world. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't see that often. And she's doing several shows a year, and but she's selling them out too. Like, she found what made her unique. She took her background and her ability to be a great humorist and capitalized on it. So, yeah, I think that that's really important, that you have your own identity.
Jared?
Absolutely, yeah. I'm absolutely. I love my comedians that have they know who they are, what they're looking for. The other thing for me is gonna be like their background, their work ethic. I'm really big on that work ethic, definitely. Like, I like to see what you've done, how hard are you gonna work, how much have you put into this already. How much am I gonna have to do work for you? So that's really big with me, is work ethic, and then also delivery. Like the ability to take everyday mundane things and deliver it in such a hilarious way, or say it so differently to someone else that makes them laugh. That's what I look for also.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for being here. Is there anything that you want to leave comedians with who are going to be watching this and listening to this? Because they're going to be writing down every single word you said, by the way. They're just going to be like, I needed all this information because you don't get this.
Yeah, I just want to say that, I mean, aside from this, I'd like to talk to you about doing your podcast live, but we'll get into that later. We can talk about that later. I just think that the big takeaway is, and my boss has like a really good quote, and it's kind of his motto for why he does what he does. But he said that, like, laughter is the hand on God's shoulder in a troubled world. And I think that that's a really important quote. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that it's a really important quote, because I think that I think people need to remember when you have the gift of being able to be funny, not everyone has that gift. And I think that if that's your gift, that's your passion, do it for the guy who is on the brink of divorce and gets to go out for a night and spent $20 on a ticket to like just laugh for 2 hours and forget about his problem. Do it for, the young female who's feeling depressed and hopeless and again spent $20 needing to hear something that's just gonna make her laugh. And by making people laugh, you may change their outlook on whatever's going on in their life. But your show, it should be 75 minutes worth of bringing joy to people's lives.
Okay.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you guys so much. That's the thing is we as comedians, a lot of times we get self-involved. It's terrible that happens. But one of those things is I always try to think about everybody spent money to get here. They have to 2-drink or 2-item minimum. And I want to make this the best night ever. And sadly, my first year of comedy was me strutting the stage like I was Chris Rock because that was my influence growing up. I love Chris Rock. And so I didn't even know I was doing that. And someone had to call me out and say, hey, you're a little aggressive on stage, but that's Chris Rock's style, right? That's not my style. But I emulated that. And so then I had to realize, oh, I'm making people, they laugh, but it might be a little awkward for them as well. Like, oh, this guy's a little intimidating. So that's a good thing to remember that we're there to entertain and people paid a lot of money to come see us. So we should work as hard as we can. So thank you guys so much for taking your time. And I appreciate this. And thanks. So if you guys love that interview and you want more interviews, you want more stuff for me to talk about, subscribe, like, leave some comments, questions. Maybe there's some more questions that I can ask them. I can ask managers, agents, all kinds of people. Tell me what you're looking for, what kind of information you want, and I will go find it for you. All right. Thank you guys so much. Subscribe. Have a great one. Bye.